Awesome. We're being recorded, just so you know. And it looks like we have a couple of attendees. Ooh, we got lots of attendees. Welcome, welcome, everyone, to Scavengers in the Sky, or Scavengers of the Sky. My name is Kat. We're just going to let a few more people trickle in for this wonderful presentation about turkey vultures. My colleague here, co-conspirator, is Michelle Garcia. She's the Educational Programs Coordinator. I am Kat Hill. I am the Volunteer Program Coordinator. And we're going to share some fantastic facts about turkey vultures today. Just so you know, this is a webinar format, so there's no chat feature enabled. However, if you have questions, you can share those questions in the Q&A feature. And at the end of the presentation, Michelle is going to look at some of those questions and feed them to me. So then that way we can answer some of those wonderful questions that you have. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get that ready to go. We have a poll question for everyone to take a stab at before we begin. Want to get to know you all and how familiar you are with turkey vultures. So I'm going to share my screen, do this, and let's see if this works. Michelle, do you see my screen?
Yes, your screen looks beautiful.
Yay! I love it. So we have a wonderful poll question just to get to know all you, what your familiarity with turkey vultures is. I want to know, has anyone here seen a turkey vulture in the wild, in captivity? You know, do you think you've seen one, or are you not sure? Go ahead and answer this lovely question and we will share the results. I'll give it like another minute, I think.
Cool. Almost everybody has responded to our poll.
Oh, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and share those results. Excellent. This is probably what I expected, basically because they're very, very common birds. If you've been to like any of our open spaces or in any of our parks, you've probably seen a turkey vulture. They are like everywhere, especially in the summertime. I think they take advantage of the warm weather to, you know, find lots of dead things. So I'm really glad to see that almost everyone has seen some. And even if you haven't, or even if you're not sure, that's okay too, because we're going to go over kind of how to spot them in the wild. So then that way in your next adventure, you can be aware and know what you're looking for. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. For all of you who came a little bit later and missed the poll and that, I'm Kat. I'm here with Michelle, and we're going to talk about the amazing superpowers of this amazing, but I think underappreciated animal of our open spaces. I'm going to stop. Oh, did we actually share? Okay, stop sharing those results. Perfect. Excellent. Now I can actually move. Oh, too far ahead. There we go. So, what's in a name? So turkey vultures are named for turkeys. It speaks for itself, right? They both have like this bright red bald head, but the common name barely scratches the surface for what this animal can do. I think the scientific name goes way beyond their appearance, and it tells us a little bit more about their role and their behavior. Their scientific name is Cathartes aura. Cathartes is close in Latin to Catherine, which means to clean or purify. And this is really befitting for the turkey vulture because it literally cleans up our open spaces in our ecosystems. The second part of the name is aura, which means light wind or air. Turkey vultures are very good at taking advantage of the most insignificant amount of wind in their wings in order to soar across the open spaces without flapping. Turkey vultures are also super widespread. There are 5 subspecies that range from southern Canada all the way to the tip of Chile in South America. They're adapted to a wide variety of habitats, but prefer hilly mountainous areas with good areas to take off from. Edge habitat and areas around forests and open grasslands are favored by turkey vultures. They've also been around for a pretty long time. Paleontologists have actually found the bones of both California condors and turkey vulture bones at the La Brea tar pits. Both of those species were very likely attracted to the tar pits because of the incredible cornucopia of like carrion that was trapped in those tar pits. And very likely these birds became ensnared themselves. The La Brea tar pits are about 38,000 years old, which means that these birds have been around for a pretty long time in California. So if you've been hiking in our open spaces, you're very likely to have seen turkey vulture before. They're often seen very high, soaring in the sky, and you're straining your neck, almost blinding yourself. And you might wonder, am I seeing a turkey vulture? Or is it a hawk? Or an eagle? Or is it a condor? So here are some pro tips. It can actually be quite tricky to judge size from a distance, but turkey vultures are actually much smaller than California condors. A California condor's wingspan is like 9.5 feet long. A golden eagle, which is also fairly commonly seen at a few of our open space preserves, their wingspan is about 6 to 8 feet long, and a turkey vulture's wingspan is about 6 feet. So they're still pretty large birds, but not nearly as large as the more famous California condor. Both eagles and condors have more of a flat profile when they fly. So if you stretch your arms out like this and spread your fingers out, that's kind of more of the profile that you're looking for in a condor or an eagle. Whereas a turkey vulture's wings, in profile, when you're looking at them head on, they're actually more like a V. So their wings outstretch and they kind of do this and they tip a little bit to the sides when they're soaring on those thermals. So vultures are also identifiable with, especially if you have a pair of binoculars. Especially if you have a pair of binoculars. You can see their characteristic red head, and the underside of their wings, they're actually the back side of their wings are going to be more silvery or white rather than dark. So that's another way that you can get a glimpse and hopefully identify one in the wild. If you're ever super confused though, just remember that the number of condors in the wild is still in the hundreds. They're doing better. California condors have been recovering since the 1980s, but they're still not as common as turkey vultures. Turkey vultures number in the millions across the world. So you are much more likely to see a turkey vulture. If you're ever confused, definitely like poke your nearby birder and get yourself a pair of binoculars so you can like really hone in on some of those ID aspects. But I wanted to tell you all about why turkey vultures are so cool. So they play a really important role in our ecosystems, and they do so with some really awesome superpowers. They are nature's sanitation engineers. They actually help prevent the spread of disease with their incredibly strong stomach acids. The main reason that vultures can eat almost anything is that they have the lowest gastric pH in the animal kingdom. Stomach acid, as you probably know, it protects all different kinds of animals, including people, because it digests bacteria and viruses and other organisms that can make us sick. Human stomach acid has a pH of about 2. It kills 99% of the bacteria that comes in contact with it. But as you probably know, people can still get sick and die if they eat enough contaminated or rotten food. Turkey vulture's stomach acid has a pH slightly above 0. And this is lower than a car battery acid. And it's 100 times as concentrated as human gastric acid. So their stomach acid can almost like dissolve metal, as well as digest nearly all organisms, including those that cause botulism, anthrax, rabies, cholera, hepatitis, polio, all kinds of nasty things. Vultures can eat just about anything that is dead and rotten, including animals that died from infections. And this in turn actually prevents those carcasses from coming in contact with other organisms or with people and preventing the spread of disease. So by eating these dead animals, turkey vultures are actually in turn decontaminating the environment and recycling those nutrients back into the ecosystem in the form of nitrogen or poop. So turkey vultures are pretty impressive, but how exactly are they able to fly such long distances to find dead animals to eat? Well, that's pretty easy. Turkey vultures are incredibly efficient flyers. They do this by taking advantage of thermals. Thermals are basically pockets of air that are warmed up. So think thermal, like, wearing thermals. They're pockets of warm air that, due to the physics of air, rise. So this means that vultures don't really fly early in the morning or late in the evening. They wait for the sun to warm up the air, which causes it to rise. So in the meantime, turkey vulture wakes up, he's like preening himself a little bit, and then he stretches out his wings to kind of get some solar radiation. And they have the best California lifestyle. I am so jealous. So once that hot air warms up, a vulture will they like to be like on a cliff edge or in a tree, and they jump off and they spread their wings and they let that warm air catch like a parachute. And with a few very involuntary adjustments, that vulture can make the most efficient use of just a little tiny bit of wind. They don't need to flap their wings, which means that they're not using a whole lot of energy. Soaring around the valleys and the cliff sides of our open spaces provides the runway for a vulture to fly miles and miles and miles. This is why vultures like to perch on high places. It means a lot less effort when they need to get going in the morning. In fact, a turkey vulture on the ground is in a very vulnerable place. This actually means that feeding time is also a pretty scary time for a turkey vulture. Carcasses are often on the ground, which means a vulture can get ambushed by a predator. Carcasses also tend to attract other scavengers. So how do turkey vultures avoid getting ambushed by other predators? So they actually use the behavior of other vultures to see what's going on in the landscape around them. Often when a vulture senses prey, they will start to hone in on that smell, and their dark bodies allow them to kind of stand out against the sky. And vultures, they're very social animals. They will congregate. If they see one vulture exhibiting a certain behavior that says, "Ooh, I found food," they're going to fly on over and they're going to check out what that other vulture found. More and more vultures come and they form a kettle where they start to circle around in the sky. Kind of looks like boiling water in a way. And as they hone in on the smell of that carcass, their circle starts to tighten and tighten. And what they're doing is they're actually watching for other animals near this carcass. The vultures will then drop down in groups to feed on a carcass. And when one vulture has had its fill, it may fly back up to a nearby tree or another post to kind of watch and see what's going on. The highly social ways of the turkey vulture means that it can be more aware of predators sneaking in on the group. A really fun fact, when I was researching for this presentation, when a group of turkey vultures descend on the ground to feed on a carcass, it's actually called a wake. Kind of morbid, I know, but it does make sense. I really love that fact. But wait, so might have skipped over this. How exactly can a turkey vulture find its next meal? Do birds actually smell? So yes, this is actually a really interesting question. After an animal dies, a gas called methyl mercaptan is emitted and it attracts vultures. This chemical compound is found in the tissues of people, animals, plants, and it's the same smell that many people notice after, in their urine, after they've eaten asparagus. And it's also added to natural gas in order for leaks in pipelines to be detected. In fact, turkey vultures have been found circling like gas pipelines for this exact same reason. This ability is one way in which the turkey vulture actually stands out. They are among the very few birds that can smell at all. You might notice in this picture that that hole actually in the top part of his beak. So they have a very prominent opening in their nostril through which you can almost see through completely. This allows more air molecules to get in there and enhances their sense of smell. In fact, other scavenger birds like the black vulture in the eastern United States and our California condor, they will actually watch the behavior of other birds, like the turkey vultures around them, in order to find their next meal, because they themselves do not have this amazing sense of smell. Turkey vultures also have some other amazing superpowers. Their bald heads actually allow them to stick their head into dead things and then fling their head around to get rid of the gunk and prevent disease. Don't you wish you could do that? I think I'll pass, but it still seems really cool. And this actually is really good for them because it keeps their head clean. So then that way they're not spreading disease or getting infections. So if you aren't impressed with the turkey vulture yet, just imagine getting on the wrong side of one. What do you think they will do? Well, turkey vultures have an arsenal of horrible substances in their stomachs. First, they'll warn you. They will hiss menacingly. Vultures do not have any other sounds they make. In fact, they do not have a song-making organ like other birds. I think it's called a syrinx. So for the most part, they're actually very quiet. But let's go ahead and listen to what this vulture has to say to our intruders. So I'm going to see if this plays. Did y'all hear that? That noise? So again, they don't really have any song-making organs. They don't make a whole lot of noises, but they will warn you with this very menacing hiss. And If you aren't perturbed by that, that doesn't work. They will puke. Yes, they will projectile vomit all of that disgusting, half-digested carrion onto whoever has threatened them. So yeah, don't mess with a turkey vulture. It is really important to note here that turkey vultures actually hardly ever attack living prey. They do not have the fangs, talons, or skills for killing live animals, but they will defend themselves and their young with vomit. Let's see if there we go. But, despite this perverse behavior, turkey vultures are also quite the lovebirds. Turkey vultures actually mate for life, which is, I think, personally very romantic. Their courtship behaviors include a dance, which involves the male, he raises his wings and he lifts his feet up. And then if female's interested, he'll take flight and then she'll follow him around. And it's actually quite cute. Then once, they have coupled up and done their business, they have a nest. So their nests are actually located in some selected locations, not very far from their roost. And to be fair, the nest is a bit of an exaggeration because they generally find a site on the ground or in a cave or on a cliffside, in a hollow log, where they kind of scratch away some soil and leaf litter. And then they lay between 1 and 3 eggs. In a given area, there might not be very many specific locations for a turkey vulture to build its nest. So once they've chosen a site, they may actually use it for a decade or more. Both parents are very invested in their young. Both of them incubate the eggs and also the nestlings. Both parents also feed their babies. So the incubation time, I think, is about a month or a little more than a month, actually. And then the nestling development time is between 60 and 84 days. So at a maximum, they are spending over 4 months in intense breeding and rearing of their young. So it really makes sense to me. I read somewhere actually a coworker told me that the ancient Egyptians saw vultures as a symbol of maternal protection. They really do care for their young. So, like the California condor, turkey vultures also face many threats. This includes the use of lead ammunition as well as the use of poison baits for animals. Vultures cannot pick around bullet fragments, and they also can't tell if an animal died from natural causes or from poisoning. Consuming these things can, over the long term, make those birds very sick. And in rescue efforts, these birds have to go through something called chelation therapy in order to remove these toxins and poisons, and they may not actually survive this. So it is a very tragic thing when local groups find birds that have been poisoned. Development is also really it's also a threat because this makes it very difficult for turkey vultures to find suitable nesting habitat for raising their young and also for finding food. But one of the biggest impacts, I think, to scavengers of all kinds is roadkill. Roadkill is irresistible for vultures, and they often congregate on the road to eat a fresh mark. However, they're not very good at getting out of the way quickly, and so they actually can become roadkill themselves. I've heard the remark that our current roadways are the La Brea tar pits of the modern world because of how they draw animals in without allowing them a chance to escape. But not all of this ends in tragedy for turkey vultures. There are organizations that help injured and sick wildlife. In our area, we have the Wildlife Education and Rehabilitation Center in Morgan Hill. And they've done some amazing work with rehabilitating injured wildlife. And September 2008, actually, they rescued a turkey vulture. And he was a young turkey vulture. He was like hanging around somebody's house. And at first, he like disappeared. But then about a week later, he actually ended up near the WERC, like their buildings. He had somehow found a way to, the facility. And for 2 weeks, he could be seen every morning, either on top of an enclosure, perched in a tree, walking around, and they could not figure out how to capture him. They spent, a good 2 weeks trying to figure out how to capture this bird. Well, due to their extraordinary efforts, they were able to capture this bird and confine that vulture, examine him, and it confirmed that he had a healed fracture on his left wing, possibly caused by a vehicle collision while he was eating on the road. Since the injury was permanent, the vulture wasn't able to fly very well. And so the people at WERC got him back to health as much as they could. And then they got permission from the US Fish and Wildlife Service to use him as an education animal. Many people actually know this bird by the name Zorro because of the way he holds his wing. It kind of looks like a black cape. So if you've ever gotten a chance to meet Zorro, he's like a local celebrity and has helped educate many people about the importance of these really special birds. So despite all of these challenges, turkey vultures are still one of the most common species of birds seen in our open spaces, and they are very resilient despite these different impacts. So I wanted to say, they're very cool. They have amazing abilities. They help us serve our local ecosystems and protect us against the spread of disease. I want to learn if any of you have some specific questions about turkey vultures, and we can dive into those questions. Really appreciate all of you for hanging out.
So we have one question in the Q&A. They ask, are vultures considered raptors?
Oh, that is a great question. And I was having a hard time finding a good answer to this question. So I was going to add this in, and it felt like a really long kind of explanation. For the longest time, like vultures in particular, they have been kind of lumped in with storks, actually, and other like groups of birds. Many people basically thought that, so our old world turkey, like old world vultures, from Africa and Europe and basically on those, what we call the old continents, they are actually not closely related at all to the New World vultures. They, in fact, have done something called, now I'm going to forget the name of it, but it's basically where two different lineages come to the same body plan and evolutionary adaptations independently. They don't really share a genetic lineage, but they've come to the same results because of the environments in which they basically evolved in similar environments. So it's really fascinating. New World vultures, Old World vultures are not related. And it is speculated due to genetic evidence that our New World vultures are more related to secretary birds and ospreys. The Old World vultures are more related to the eagles and falcons. So yes, they are indeed kind of sort of raptors, but they have their own special adaptations. And I highly recommend reading up on the literature because it's a mess. It's a big quandary. Any other questions?
Yes. So the same person that asked that question, convergent evolution is
Thank you.
the term. Yes. And another question that we have, another question is, what are the turkey vulture's natural predators?
Natural predators. That is a great question. So their natural predators would be other animals that primarily would feed on their young. So animals that can get into their nests and find their babies. They generally don't have a whole lot of like other predators except, you know, when the random coyote or bobcat sees an opportunity for, you know, a kill, and they're like, oh, that turkey vulture's not paying attention, maybe I can take him down. But in general, that's very, very rare, and that animal would have to be very desperate because, again, projectile vomiting, don't want to deal with that. The animals that I'm thinking of, so that would primarily target nests would be like skunks and raccoons and potentially snakes and those kinds of animals. Yeah, so this is why they have such incredible parental investment as well. Like they're very protective of their young. That's where their highest mortality comes from.
Nice. The questions are popping in.
Woo!
So another participant asks, are they migratory?
So our residents, I'm pretty sure like they tend to stick around. But there are other subspecies of turkey vultures throughout the United States that are migratory. I was reading about there's like some in South America actually that are much more migratory. They'll come back up into Mexico, for example, and then go back down. But our local birds, they really like California. They tend to stick around.
And do they regurgitate to feed their young or take carrion back to them? Or is that dangerous because of how acidic their stomach acid is?
That is actually a really good question. I'm not sure. I wonder, in my research, I didn't find an answer to this question. I challenge you to find an answer to this question. That is really cool. Like I wonder if they have like a separate, or maybe they don't fully digest it. I don't know. Because yeah, you're right. That gastric acid would be harsh.
Yeah, especially to a baby chick. I don't know. Maybe they're just naturally
naturally
used to that.
into it. Yeah, they really like their intense acidity, like super pickles. That's what I call it, super pickles.
Super pickles. That's good.
Yep. Oh, but no, I do not have an answer to that question. That is brilliant, and I must find out.
And then this might be our last one. One participant asked, I see turkey vultures circling thermals along with hawks. Do they get along, or are they just riding on the same thermal highway?
I'd say they're probably riding on the same thermal highway. I must admit I didn't do as much research into like the interactions between like hawks and vultures. They do seem to like, they don't seem to bother each other very much, at least in my experience when I've seen them. They're both very adept at, you know, taking advantage of those winds. And I do know that some hawks will take advantage of a kill. They, you know, some hawks, like hawks mostly hunt for themselves, but if they find some carrion and it's fresh enough, I mean, they'll take a bite out of it because it's like free food, right? And so it wouldn't surprise me if they also watch turkey vultures to see what they're honing in on. But, you know, in general, I don't think that they interact that much. But that is a good question. That is a good one too. Any others?
Yes, we have more. We have a question that carrion gets consumed by coyotes, birds, and other animals. What is the pecking order? Who gets first dibs?
That is a great question. I say, ooh, turkey vultures probably do get first dibs now that I think about it, because they have this very heightened sense of smell. So they are probably the ones who find it first. But you know, these other animals, they know what a turkey vulture is and they know what they're after. So it's a matter of how quickly can the vultures gather, find the food, eat enough, and then, oh man, coyotes are in here. Well, I guess we're out of here, kind of thing. Yeah, I'd say vultures probably have first dibs on a kill. However, you know, there are lots of predators out there, like mountain lions or bobcats or coyotes that take down their own prey. So, you know, if they take down their own prey first, they eat their fill, they go and they take a nap, then the turkey vultures are circling above them. They're waiting for a coyote to go take a nap, so then that way they can come in and get dibs. I think it really depends on who finds it first and or who killed it first.
Another question is there a way to tell the difference between how the hawk and the turkey vulture flies?
I'm not as, so there are lots of different hawks, and I'm not a very good birder. So I don't have a great answer to this, but I just, from every single person that I've talked to who stares at the sky with their binoculars, they tend to tip. They because they're making those micro adjustments on the wind, and they're really trying hard not to flap, because their food source is a lot more limited. They're not hunters the way other hawks are. So, you know, they're going to be a lot more conservative on how they use their energy. So yeah, I'd say like that's how I've always identified them, because most of the time I'm staring at the sky and it's like backlit, so I can barely tell what pattern is underneath that bird. But I know I'm seeing tipping and I'm seeing a V formation, and I'm like, oh, turkey vulture. And most of your broad-winged hawks are going to be, I think, a little bit more flatter, and or like depending, I think the falcons actually tend to put their wings more back when they're above. So there's actually quite a few great resources that look at profiles of birds. You do like bird profiles online, I'm sure you can find a great resource on that.
Nice. One of our participants came back with an answer to the question about the adult turkey vultures feeding their young. She says that both parents feed the young by regurgitation, either directly into the mouth of the chick or onto the ground next to the chick. And they sent a link.
Whoa!
Be able to do some more research.
I know, but it still doesn't answer the question of like, is it like extra or less acidic, or do the chicks like, do they care?
They must be used to it. If it's directly into the chick's mouth, I mean, there's no avoiding that acid.
No, there isn't. This is wild. Man, I'm rethinking my thoughts on like they're still very cool birds, but I would not want to grow up as one. If I had to like eat regurgitated, highly acidic super pickles, I'd be, nope.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
Any other questions?
Yes, we have one more question in the queue.
Perfect.
If you see a flock of turkey vultures circling above your head, do you need to worry, or do you just need a change of deodorant?
Well, the chemical that they're attracted to, it comes from dead animals. And or I guess, if you've been eating a lot of asparagus and you take a leak off the trail, maybe you might attract a turkey vulture to you ish. But in general, like, you don't need to worry. It's not, I don't think it's like a body odor thing. It's more, they will start circling in areas where they are smelling dead animals. So if you do see that while you're hiking along the trails, there may be a dead animal nearby. It might not be you, it might be something else that they're honing in on. And you can stand and you can watch them and see how much they're honing in, or if they found like, if the scent is kind of leading them off track, then they may like move away. That's more often what I have seen. Like I'll watch them and they seem to be circling in a spot and then they all seem to kind of dissipate. They're like, oh, actually, this isn't the right spot. We're going to move on. Not to say like finding carrion is easy. It's pretty difficult, even with their special superpowers. Awesome. Well, that's the end of the questions.
That's all of them.
Wow.
Oh, one more just popped in.
One more. I thought we were done. We'll get one more and then I think we'll wrap it up.
Oh, so the one participant says they've heard that if turkey vultures are in the sky above you, you don't have much to worry about. If you find them by you on the ground, you're in trouble. That is, they know your situation is more dangerous than you know. Is it true, do you think?
I mean, I guess they could be an omen, but turkey vultures have meant different things to many different cultures. Like, mentioned, the Egyptians thought they were a sign of femininity and maternal protection. So, they have a complex aura and demeanor, I think. They are much more than what we think they are. They can be an omen of death, maybe, but I think they're also a sign that our local open spaces and ecosystems are very healthy and amazing. So yeah, that's the way I see it. I think if you have a turkey vulture that close, I'd be a little worried about the turkey vulture. Like, what are you doing being so close to a person? Were you bred in captivity or are you used to people? Yeah, that is a really good, interesting thing for sure. All right. Well, I think that's the end of our questions. Did we want to grab one more? We'll grab one more and then we'll call it.
Two more popped in. People can't stop learning about turkey vultures. I love it.
I mean, I think it's fantastic. The birds are amazing.
So we have two questions. One participant asked, how is their hearing? And they were also wondering if you could talk a little bit more about their nests.
Oh yeah. So they can hear, they do have ear holes. They're, I don't know if you can see it on this picture, but they kind of like down and below the eye. And their hearing, I don't think their hearing is any more or less powerful than any other birds. I haven't really done the research on that in particular, but yeah, I didn't find anything that said, wow, these birds have amazing hearing. They're about average. The nest situation, so they don't build nests. They literally find a decent spot. It could be on the ground. It could be in a hollow tree. It can be on a cliffside. They're usually just trying to find a place that's out of the way, that's close to their roost, that they can kind of keep an eye on things. And that is hidden enough to keep them, like keep their chicks and their eggs safe from predators. They don't bring sticks to the nest. They don't really like clean up the nest or anything. They just They make a nice flat area. If you've ever read or like watched videos about California condors, condors do some things very similarly, like around pinnacles. They have nests literally on bare rocks. And you're like, I'm always flabbergasted because I'm like, what if that chick falls off the cliff? Like, what then? But they somehow know, do not get close to the edge. So they're amazing.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Kat. Sorry, I'm typing in. For anyone who missed any of this, has been recorded and will be available to watch later on.
Yes, awesome. Well, since I think we're wrapping up Q&A, I hope you've all learned something new about these really special animals. And I really look forward to tuning in again for another virtual program. I want to thank all of you for spending your lunch hour with us. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to learn more about these birds in order to share that with you all. If you have any other questions, you can always respond back to like the Eventbrite, share your thoughts, that kind of thing. And again, hope you have a great Friday.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. How do we do?